Okay, let me open this up. I hope you all can hear me. Okay. Yeah. What? Good? Say hi to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my son Mayor. We can't see. This is my mayor. The best. Yes, the mayor in town. Okay. I love my son, of course. I love all my sons and my daughters. Okay, ready? Ladies, gentlemen, good evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Okay, ladies, gentlemen, come sit down. Make yourselves comfortable. So good evening, Faith who's watching us online. Good evening, Chana Freidel is watching us online. Good evening, everyone on Chabad.org that's watching us online. I have not seen the comments yet. Hopefully they'll show up soon. Good evening to all of the wonderful, beautiful people that are here in person. Good evening. Kim, you watching us? Oh, how are you, Ravit? Okay. Hopefully on Chabad.org I see that there's views, but eyeballs, I just don't see any comments. Hopefully it's just not showing me. You're watching on Chabad.org. You can tell me where you're watching from. That'd be beautiful. Good evening to you all. Tonight, Ravit says howdy, and Kim says hello. Okay, so tonight's class is in memory of Yitzchak ben Yosef and the Shomer Shabbat Elevation, and we'll also make it in honor of Chava Zissel Bas Nachum. I think is Carol Cohen's yard site is Wednesday. Okay, so I think we're going to talk about a very, very important topic. Yes. Yeah. What? So we're going to talk about a very, very important topic. Good evening, Gail. I hope you all watch and hope you're enjoying, which is silence. And this class can go two ways. We'll see who Hashem. Sometimes I'm very clear exactly what I'm going to say. Sometimes I let Hashem. We're going to talk about silence. And I think I may have said this joke last week or recently, but it's a good one. It's a perfect introduction. And it's in my head. This woman comes to the rabbi and she says, I don't know what to do. My husband has a very short temper. We keep on getting to arguments all the time. Every time I come home, well, one look, and next thing I know, he's screaming and shouting and the whole argument. So the rabbi said, I have very special holy water for you. To say this? So she goes, I already started. So he goes to his room, he brings her a special bottle of water, says, whenever you see your husband's about to get upset, put this holy water in your mouth, but don't spit it out, don't swallow it until he leaves the room or until he calms down. You just keep this holy water in your mouth. Okay? Fine. So she takes the holy water. She comes back to the rabbi a month later and says, Rabbi, that is the holiest water in the world. That was amazing. We haven't had an argument in a month. What's the secret? What's so special about the water? The rabbi says, the water is nothing. The water is regular water. It's you keeping your mouth shut. That's the secret. It's a good story. Very wise rabbi. Some jokes are worth it. It's okay if you repeat them. I just say, it's whatever. So anyway, my friends, we're going to read the Mishnah. It's not a long Mishnah. Not a very complicated Mishnah. And we'll talk about it. And we have a few different, there's two main ideas I want to get to. We'll see how long the first one takes, if we even get to the second idea or not. We'll see, because it's all good. So I'm going to share my screen. If you're watching on my personal page or on our YouTube channel, I'm going to share the screen. If not, chapter 1, we're starting again. Our custom is to learn the entire summer. Every Shabbat of the summer, we learn Pirkei Avot. Summer is a time to work on our ethics. So that's the Chabad custom, to keep on learning this the whole summer through. And we're going to keep on doing this until we start a new series of Me and the Bible after the holidays, I guess. So, chapter 1, and I've been loving this. I'm going to tell you the truth. So, chapter 1, Mishnah 17. Okay, chapter 1 says a quote from Shimon, the son of Rabbi Gamliel. The previous Mishnah was a teaching of Rabbi Gamliel. He was the leader of the Jews before the destruction of the temple. His son is Shimon ben Gamliel, a very, very famous rabbi, Shimon ben Gamliel. He was the leader of the Jews during the time of the destruction of the temple. He was one of the 10 martyrs who was killed by the Romans. Anyway, he says as follows, Kol yamai gadalti ben hachachamim. All my days I grew up among the sages, and I have not found anything better for the body than silence. The words are very unique words, and we will definitely talk about the language of these words. I have found nothing better for the body then silence. Statement number 2, study is not the most important thing, but actions. Statement number 3, whoever indulges in too many words brings about sin. Okay? So we made 3 statements here. Number 1, what's the first statement? Silence. But he doesn't say silence. He says, after all my days amongst the sages, there's nothing better for the body than silence. Meaning there are other things that are good, but silence is even better. Okay. Number 2, the main thing is not to study, but to do. Number 3, whoever indulges in too many words brings about sin. So let's understand these ideas. Now, on a very simple level, the Mishnah seems to be saying, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rabbi Gamliel, seems to be saying, on a simple level, that talking is dangerous. Right? Talking is a dangerous thing to do. It can lead to a lot of problems. It can lead to a lot of destructive things. And the best way to protect yourself, to keep yourself safe, or to, for your body. This is not even like some spiritual. Shimon ben Gamliel is not talking about spiritual levels of greatness. He's talking about the best thing for the body is to be silent. They say loose lips sink ships, right? That's a tongue twister. Wow. Loose lips sink ships. That if you talk too much, it's not a good thing. Of course, it's a famous expression, if I can think of how it goes now, that I wasn't sure if you were smart or if you were stupid or not. Till you opened your mouth. Now I know. Okay? You proved it. So sometimes the best thing is to be silent. And being silent is actually very much a Jewish thing. What do we say every morning, every night? Before we go to sleep tonight, what are we going to say? Shema Yisrael. Very good. What does Shema mean? Hear, O Israel. Hear. But the very wise ones who didn't say here, they're just being silent. They silently answer. Very good, Michelle. So, hear, O Israel. And this just means to listen. It means to hear. And I'm not going to get into the difference between hearing and listening, although that would be a very interesting conversation, but that's not for right now. There's another very, very famous man, a convert, Yisro, who converted, and the whole Torah, a whole parsha of the Torah, and in fact, not just any regular parsha, but not that we can judge what's more or less important, but one of the most important parshas of the Torah, which was the parsha of the 10 Commandments, is called by his name, by Yisro. And how does the opening of this parsha begin? We find that Yisro is so great, it deserves to not only be from the great converts of history, but that the whole Torah reading of the 10 Commandments should be called by his name. What's the opening words? Vayishma Yisro. And Yisro heard all that God had did for the Jewish people, and he came. Meaning, what made Yisro into who Yisro was? He was able to listen. He was able to hear. And that's sadly one of the biggest challenges many smart people have, is that if they would only be able to shut up and listen, they would be much smarter. But they know some stuff, and because they know some stuff, they become very excited about what they already know, and they feel this urge to share and show what they know, and they miss the opportunity to learn a lot more. Which reminds me of another great joke, a rabbi joke. Chassid is more like a vert. So there was this guy. He's very smart, but he never stopped talking. He's always talking. He loves to talk. So one day he gets up and he's talking. He says in the middle of a speech, he says, I once heard a great teaching from a rabbi. Someone in the crowd says, that's a lie. It's impossible. You never heard anybody say a teacher because you never shut up long enough to listen. So he seems to be saying, be quiet. Now, what's the next thing he says on a simple level? Main thing is not to study, but to action. So even though you got to study, it seems to be a little bit different thing. Because first we're talking about you shouldn't talk too much. Then he says you should talk. You should study. Study is what? Talking. You should learn. But the main thing is not to learn. The main thing that you're learning should come to action. You should do. If someone's learning more than they're doing, that's a question. So your learning should bring to action. Okay? And then point number 3, if you talk too much, guaranteed, what's going to happen? Sin. Right? When you have too many words, that's when you come to sin. Actually, this is a reference to Chava. Chava was the first woman, and she gave all women their ability to say, many, many words. Women have many more words than men do. I'm going to say too many jokes already, but women have many more words than men do. It's because I have to repeat it a few times so the husband hears them. But so she spoke too much. How did she speak too much? What happened that she spoke too much that ended up causing her to sin? Well, she spoke to the snake, but not just that she spoke to the snake, which was already a mistake. It was a mistake. She spoke to the snake, but specifically what she said was a mistake. She added to the words of God. God said to Adam, and Adam said to Eve, don't eat from the tree. But Chava felt the need to embellish. She felt the need to, add to it, because she felt if I'm just going to repeat what Adam said, it's not going to sound convincing enough. Sometimes some people feel the need to add a little bit to what was said to make it sound more convincing, more real. So she adds, and what does she say? God said not to touch the tree. And what did the snake do? The snake pushed her against the tree. So when she pushed her, she touched the tree, and what happened? Nothing. There was no sin to touch the tree. So he says, you see, it was a trick. God was sort of lying to you to protect you, but nothing happened. And because she spoke too much, that ended up being the beginning of her downfall. So that's what it says. Don't, whoever adds too many words brings sin upon themselves. It's also a reference to a teacher, that a teacher needs to teach succinctly. A teacher needs to teach very short, not to take too long to explain something. Because when you take too long, what happens? The more words you use to make a point, you don't make it better, you make it worse. Called legalese, right? Where you make so many words that you lose the point of what it is that you were in the middle of saying, and the students are not able to follow your train of thought all over the entire planet, and they get lost, and it brings to sin. Okay. So the question that the commentaries ask is, what's so unique about this teaching of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel to tell us that we should be silent? It's a basic idea all over Judaism. Silence is, on one hand, it's obvious that when you speak too much, you'll bring sin. In fact, we have a very famous verse in Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 19. The multitude of words, transgression will not be avoided. And he who holds back his lips is wise. So it seems to be an obvious thing that you should avoid too much talking, and that's not like a tremendously novel, interesting new idea that we haven't thought of before. So that's the question, the classic question. I want to ask you a different kind of question. Is speaking actually so bad? Is it not times when speaking is good? Depends, right? So you should know that whenever I ask a question, if you say it depends, you'll probably be right. You're right, it depends. Speaking sometimes is good. The Rambam goes through 5 different kinds of speech. On this Mishnah, the Rambam describes 5 different kinds of speech. You have holy speech or required speech. Speech which you must do. Before you eat, you must use your power of speech to make a blessing. To learn Torah, that's a required mitzvah of speech. Then he describes speech which is praiseworthy speech. For example, when you're talking stories of righteous tzaddikim, when you're talking words of ethics, words of mussar, words of rebuke, when you're learning life lessons from something, it's not a word of Torah, it's not a blessing or a prayer, but it's praiseworthy. You're speaking moral, ethical teachings, you're helping someone, you're doing an act of kindness, you go to visit a sick person, and that's praiseworthy words. Then you have words of rishus, words that are permitted. Business. You go to the doctor, and the doctor's telling you, these are obviously permitted words. We're doing business, and part of business you got to talk, right? It's kind of hard to make a sale. New. It's not going to really work. So those are permitted words. Then you have embarrassing words or language he uses. Where's my notes over here? Words that are repulsive. That's what he uses. Repulsive, which is idle chatter, just yenting, chattering, dvarim b'telim. And then you have forbidden talk, lashon hara, gossip, obviously lies, cursing, negative, speaking evil about somebody else. These are forbidden words that are not allowed. So there's all kinds of words on the spectrum. And obviously, when the Mishnah says that talking is, what kind of talking brings to sin? Negative talking, repulsive talking. Good talking is mitzvahs, prayers. That's good, and that's not a bad thing. And yet, here's something fascinating. Here's something fascinating. Where did Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, where did this young man, he's not young, where did he get this idea that silence is golden, and that silence is the best thing for the body? From where? The sages. So the verse in Proverbs says that when you talk too much, you're going to for sure come to sin. And that's talking about, if you hang out with gossipers and with idle chatterers, and you just talk and talk and talk, you're going to come to end up sinning and speaking negative. But if you're sitting amongst the rabbis and you're studying Torah and you're in the yeshiva, you would think that that's a place where you would learn the value of speaking, holy speech. Not there would you learn the value of silence. Right? And by the way, if we go a little bit further, how do we define a human being? As a speaker. What makes us unique over animals is that you have doimim, you have inanimate objects. You have tzemeach, which is vegetation. Above that, you have the animal kingdom. And above that, you have medaber. It's called a medaber, a speaker. The ability to communicate, that's what makes us human. So speech allows us to express our feelings, to share our emotions, to explain ideas, to influence other people, to strengthen relationships. There's so many important, beautiful things that, and God made, very good. I'm going to talk about that in 2 minutes. That's right. God made the world through speech. We're going to get to that in a minute. So the point is, you would think that in a holy environment, speech is a beautiful thing. And instead of saying to be silent, Rabbi Shimon should teach us how to speak effectively, how to communicate, how to share ideas of Torah. And yet instead he's saying that when I'm sitting amongst, or growing amongst the sages, I discovered that the best thing is silence. He's listening, but he's teaching us, like, what's the best quality you can learn. So why is silence? The rule that silence is golden is when it's a kid making noise, like at the dinner table, right? But someone's giving a speech. If someone's teaching Torah, silence is not golden. You think talking is good, sharing is good. What if you see someone that's not doing something correctly? Silence or to speak, to share, to communicate. So when is he talking about when he says that silence is, I found nothing better than silence? Now, I will tell you, Rashi says that even amongst the sages, they prefer silence. He's saying, I grew amongst the sages and they prefer silence. Do the sages not have anything smart to say? Of course they do. That's why they're sages. They're sages. They all have something smart to say. And yet, despite the fact that they're sages and they have something smart to say, he's learning from them that the best method of communication, so to say, is silence. Now, by the way, who's saying, this is my own thought, I didn't read it from Rashi, but notice how he says, all my life I grew amongst the sages. All my life, meaning he's not a young man. He's already older. And yet, even he's older, how does he consider himself? As if he's growing amongst the sages. Meaning, why is he the kind of person who appreciates the value of silence, the value of listening and absorbing from other people? Because his whole life he's on a learning experience. Some people stop learning, I don't know, at the age of 5, some at the age of, some never, like 15, some when they graduate school, and some people already, all my life, they're already sages on their own. And yet, how do they live life? I'm always absorbing what lessons, what wisdom, what inspiration can I take from those people around me. So that's just a beautiful idea. But I want to understand this method of communication that he learned from the sages, which is the communication of silence. And you'll notice that the language is very like this. Why is the language like this? If you wanted to say be quiet, what would you say? Well, just the best thing is to be quiet. Doesn't say the best thing is to be quiet. He says, I found nothing better than silence. Right? Nothing better than, meaning there are other things that are also good. He's not saying silence is dangerous. I'm sorry, he's not saying that speaking is dangerous. He's not criticizing the importance or the power or the value of speaking. He's among sages. who use speech in an effective way to share beautiful ideas and to inspire people. What he's saying is that silence is more valuable, more good for the body. So let's understand, what is he talking about? What's the silence? What's the method of silence here? Yeah, Chana Fredel says it depends what is said, and that's correct. Depends what is said. So I want to, let's think for a minute. Let's forget the mission. Let's think for a minute. When someone is silent, is that silence an act of connection or an act of separation? You say connection. Okay, very good. Esther says it depends. It depends. It depends. Let's think about it. There's two kinds of silence. There's a kind of silence where it comes from, I don't want to argue with you. I'm not going to, I don't care what you say. It's a negative trait that comes from either an inability to discuss or an unwillingness to communicate. And so I'm giving you the silent treatment, or I'm ignoring you. I'm not talking to you. That's silence. Is that a silence of connection and of bonding? It's the exact opposite. It's a silence of absolute disconnection. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hear you. I don't care enough about what you say to even internalize it, to deal with it, to respond to it. Or I don't care enough about your actions to waste my time talking to you and responding to you because I don't think you'll listen to me. So I've effectively said, we're done this conversation. And we're done is not because we agree with each other. It's because I don't even care enough to agree with you or to get you to agree to me. So the silence here is the silence of separation. Reminded of the joke of this couple that was kind of a big argument and there's silent treatment. So they go to bed. Now the guy would always sleep through his alarm clock. He needed his wife to wake him up. And in the morning, he had a very, very important meeting early in the morning. He needed his wife to wake him up. So he sets the alarm for 7 o'clock in the morning. And he says, please wake me up when the alarm goes off, 6:30 in the morning. Somebody, he puts a note. He doesn't want to talk to her. So he puts a note on her pillow. Please wake me up when the alarm goes off. What happens? He wakes up, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. He already missed his appointment. He jumps to show screen. What happened? You're supposed to wake me up, the alarm. And he sees on the pillow a note, wake up, it's 6:30 in the morning. Take that, yeah? She got him back. Of course, no woman will not get you back. It's not silent treatment. Left a note. She left you a note. So this is a silence of disconnection, of totally, I'm not interested in communicating with you. Let me give you another example. What about when a parent is afraid to speak to their child because they think the child won't talk to them, if they will get upset at them? So the parent knows a child is doing something wrong. The parent knows that it's my obligation as a parent to speak to the child. But because of my own insecurity, or because of my child's insecurity, or maybe a combination of both, or maybe my insecurity that I'm portraying onto the child, could be a lot of psychoanalysis over here. But I'm afraid to share, and I hold back what I want to tell you. Is that silence communication, or is that silence also an act of separation? It's both. Separation is not different. There's sometimes where I respect you, and so I'm giving you respect. There's sometimes, I had a conversation with a woman last week or 2 weeks ago about her child doing something very, very wrong. And she had not told her child that she disagreed with what the child was doing. She was afraid to. She don't want to get the child upset, whatever. So my child, she says, he knows that it's wrong. He knows that I don't approve of it. How do you know that he knows? He's doing it. He's doing what you think he knows, that you know that he knows that he disapproves of, but she is not able to actually communicate with him. It's a very, very unhealthy place to be. That silence is not coming from connection. Let me just say that. It's not a silence that comes because I love you and I respect you. It's a silence that comes because I'm afraid of you. And if I'm afraid of you, that's not connection. That's distance. Fear is a distancing emotion. It's not a connecting emotion. If you understand what I'm saying, there's a lot of depth, but that's okay. That's one kind of silence. Or actually, I take two, but it's the same. It's a silence that comes because I don't care enough to connect to you, or I'm afraid of you to connect to you, or I don't, or you're too angry for me to connect to you, or I'm too angry with you to connect to you, whatever. Again, it's not about who's right, who's wrong here. It's just about It's a silence of separation. The other kind of silence is a silence that creates a platform for connection. So when I'm silent because I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm trying to understand you. What is that silence? That's connection. My listening, because I want to understand what you're saying, or I'm trying to understand what's bothering you, or what, that's a silence. That's a very deep, powerful form of bonding and connection. Or where I'm listening to create boundaries, being silent, no, not listening, I'm being silent to create boundaries so I can share in a safe way without hurting you. So not that I'm afraid of you, that I'm not communicating, where I'm sharing, but in a healthy way, where I'm choosing my words, where I'm not saying things that might be offensive to you. I'm not making my humor that, I think it's a funny joke, but you don't find that humor so funny. That silence is not that I'm afraid of you. I'm choosing my words. I'm being careful what I say. I'm holding back comments because I know that the comment will distance the speech. If I make this joke or if I criticize this particular behavior you did, my not criticizing, not because I'm afraid of you. It's because I love you and I don't want to hurt you and I don't want to make you upset. That's a silence of connection. The silence is coming from love. Okay. So when Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, I was hanging out with the sages and I was learning from the wise men, I learned that the deepest form of, and I was hanging out with sages that are what? That are communicators, that are teachers. I learned that more effective than their speeches and their classes and their verbal forms of communication, I learned the power of their silence as a form of communication. Understand? Let's go a step further. What does he say? Where did I learn this? For the body or for the soul? The language is very strange. It doesn't say for a person. It doesn't say in the Hebrew that the best thing for a person is to be silent. It doesn't say that. So the best thing for a body. That's the words of which is very, again, it's a very unique, very strange expression, which obviously requires understanding. To say there's nothing better for the body. Which part of us? We have a body and a soul, right? We all know this. We have a body and a soul. The animals of God, so we have a body and a soul. Which part of me naturally wants to connect to you? The soul. The soul is selfless. The soul understands the value that you as a soul add to my soul, because two souls was one animal, etc., etc., etc. Again, this is a basic idea in Tanya and Chassidus, that my soul naturally has a desire to connect to your soul. Because my soul is godly, and your soul is godly, and your soul is holy and selfless, and my soul, so we connect. That's souls. What's the default setting of the body? Animal, which is selfish. And it's not negative. Being selfish is normal, natural human behavior. We are all born selfish creatures. That's how we're born. Every one of us was born as a completely selfish creature. And when we were hungry, we didn't care what our mother was doing. We didn't care if she was sleeping, if she was eating, if she was in a meeting. We didn't care. It was like, I'm hungry. The rest of the world can go jump. Like, I want food now. I'm tired now. I'm cranky now. That's the way God made every single one of us. As we mature and grow older, we're supposed to learn to be less selfish and more selfless. That's part of the maturing process that some people have worked on. Some people haven't, and just made large, just more grown, more loud, same selfish babies. I want food now. But selfish is the standard default setting of the animal, of the human being. It's the soul that's selfless. It's the body that is me, I. My body couldn't care about your body. My body just cares about me. Again, it's not a negative thing. That's just the way God made us. It's not a criticism. So my bodily focus is on my personal pleasure. What makes me feel good? You are irrelevant to that. You are irrelevant to that. And so when two people are in a relationship, what part of us is naturally in the relationship, and what part of us causes resistance to the relationship. It's the soul that naturally wants to connect to you and care about you. It's the soul that wants to be loving to you and caring to you. And it's my body that wants to be selfish and wants to be lazy and doesn't want to have the patience to deal with you and argue with you and hear you. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is talking to who? To the body. To the body. To the part of us that has a hard time listening to somebody else. The part of us that has a hard time being sensitive and being silent to make space for healthy bonding and connection and communication. And it's on that body that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, I have found nothing better for the body than silence. Got it? And this is the form of silence that the sages are referring to. The silence of allowing our animal, our body, our naturally selfish identity to become silent, to become humble, to become open to receiving you instead of focusing on me. That's the best thing for the body. That's what they're referring to. There's communication, I can talk to you, those are all good things. But the best thing, there's nothing better than to be open, to be silent, to allow for a connection and a bonding that wouldn't happen if I'm just imposing my thoughts and my ideas and my wants and my wills upon you. I'm silent, allow you to come into me. And now we can truly bond and truly connect. So that's the ultimate language of connection, is silence. I'll show you a beautiful story. I know I've also said before, but it's also a very powerful story that shows how silence, when used with precision and proper, focus, can be an extremely powerful form of communication. The Vishnitz Rabbi, Yisrael Vishnitz, he used to go on a walk in the evening. One day he tells his attendant, let me get my coat, we're going to go for a walk. They go for a walk. The shamish, the attendant of the Rebbe, doesn't know where they're going. They're walking to the town, and they come to the home of a very wealthy banker. Now, this banker who owned the bank in town was not a chassid. He wasn't even a religious Jew. He was a Jew, but he was not from the followers of the Rebbe. I mean, he respected the Rebbe. He understood the Rebbe is a holy, holy man in town. And the Rebbe comes and knocks on the door of this, in the evening, and knocks on the door of this banker. Anyway, the servant, the butler of the banker opens the door. He sees the Rebbe standing there. He says, come in. He tells the banker sees that the guy is standing there. He says, come in, Rebbe. Like, the Rabbi comes to your home. If you're religious, you're going to give the Rabbi a seat, give him a hot cup of tea. It's cold outside. The Rabbi sits down. They start schmoozing. How are you doing? How's business? How's the kid? How's your wife? How's you went on vacation? Blah, 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 whatever. Talks to him for 10, 15 minutes. He gets his coat back on, finishes the tea, says, thank you very much. I'm ready to go. In the meantime, the banker was like burning with curiosity. What the Rabbi wants? Want a donation? Does he need a new roof? Like what's going on? Why is the Rabbi here in my house? And he asks, he motions to the shamish, like, what does he want? No idea. And the Rabbi gets up to leave. So he says, Rebbe, what did you come for? Like, you didn't just come to schmooze with me about the weather and how my kids are doing in school. Like there's a reason why you walked to my house in the evening in the winter. Like, so the Rebbe says, I already did what I needed to do. Yeah, I've said this. I've already done what I needed to do. I've done what I needed. I'm done. I've got the exact language. Like, I already said what I need to say without saying it. So the banker is so confused. I don't understand. Like, he didn't say anything. So the Rebbe said, I'm not going to say it because once I give rebuke, once I say something, and you don't listen to it, I'll have lost my mitzvah. So I did my mitzvah by not speaking. I already did my mitzvah now. Well, I did my mitzvah by being in your presence and not saying anything to you. Now I can go. You can imagine the banker, his brain starting to explode. You did a mitzvah by coming to my house and just small talking to me for 15 minutes, and now you're leaving like, Rebbe, you didn't say anything. What's the mitzvah? I said, I'm not telling you. If I tell you, I'm going to lose my mitzvah. She says, no, Rebbe, tell me, I promise you. She says, if I tell you, you have to do it, because if I tell you and you don't do it, then my rebuke will have been in vain, and better for me to have been here and to not rebuke. Says, Rabbi, I promise you I'll do it. Tell me, what do you want? So the Rebbe tells him, there's a lady in the community who's a widow, and she has a home that's owned by that, she has a mortgage with the bank. She's behind on her mortgage, and tomorrow the bank is foreclosing on her home and evicting her. How could you put in the middle of winter? How could you put a poor widow onto the street? How could you do that? So, Rabbi, you don't understand. It's not my money. It's the bank. The bank has already 6 months she hasn't paid her mortgage. We already sent her multiple warnings, and we already renegotiated her mortgage with her, and we already gave her 4 chances, and we lowered her payments. What should I do? It's not my money. That's the rules of the bank. If you don't pay, you're going to get evicted. There's nothing I can do about it. And Never says, you see, you took away my mitzvah. I wasn't going to say anything. I would have gotten the mitzvah. And now, by you making me tell you about this woman, and you have good excuses why you can't do anything to help her, I knew you would have good excuses. Now I lost the mitzvah being in your presence and holding back the rebuke that would have fallen on deaf ears. And when he took his coat and he left. This man felt so guilty, such deep Jewish guilt. Next morning, he couldn't sleep all night. Next morning, he went to the bank, and he, out of his own pocket, paid the difference on the mortgage that was paid off her mortgage. This woman should be able to stay in her home without being evicted. Here you see the power of silence, of being next to someone and not speaking. And by not speaking, sometimes we're able to be more effective than when we do speak. Okay, and that's the story. And now that we have time, Baruch Hashem, and all of you are joining us from all over the world and enjoying this class, I'm glad you're all enjoying. Let us read a piece of Talmud, and let's discuss the idea of using speech to create the world and silence, which Marsha already touched on very, very briefly. So the Gemara says as follows. If you're looking on my personal page, I'm quoting a piece of Gemara from Chulin, page 89a. The Gemara in Chulin says, it's talking about different people that hold up the world, different righteous people, like different merits. So then it talks about silence. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, what is the meaning of that which is written? Did you indeed? The verse says, ha'umnam. Ha'umnam in regular Hebrew means like it's an expression of wonder. Like, do you indeed? Do you really? So do you really speak as a righteous company? And Elam is a company. Ha'umnam Elam tzedek tedaberun. Do you really speak like an illustrious company? So the rabbis, and the verse continues, do you judge with equity the sons of men? Do you judge with Mesharim? So the verse is interpreted by Rabbi Yitzchak as follows. What should a person's umnus be in the world? The Hebrew word ha'umnam, which means do you indeed, could also be an uman, a professional, a craftsman. What's the craft of a person in this world? He should render himself silent as a mute Elam. The word Elam could be a gathering. It could also be an Elam as a mute. If so, you may have thought he should render himself as mute even with regards to words of Torah. So therefore the verse states, it says, tzedek tedaberun, you should speak as a righteous company, meaning when it comes to words of Torah, you should speak. If so, you may have thought the one who speaks words of Torah has the right to become arrogant. Therefore, the verse states, judge with equity. Mesharim, the sons of men, even the learned judge, must take extra care to judge with equity and not assume he'll immediately arrive at the correct understanding. Okay, so, my friends, there's 3 parts to this Gemara, which exactly reflect the 3 parts of our Mishnah. And the Rebbe actually beautifully explains all 3 parts, but I'm going to only talk about the first part. Even though there's much more, I just want to focus on the first part. So I'm not even going to go through all 3 parts, I just read it. And if you pay attention, these 3 statements about the craft of a person being silent, about not being too silent where you don't study Torah, and righteous people being equitable and how they judge are the 3 statements in our Mishnah. If you look back at our Mishnah, what are the 3 parts of our Mishnah? Nothing better for the better than silence. The main thing is not study but actions, meaning you should still study. And then to judge, if you have too many words, it brings about sin, which is judgment. Anyway, but let's leave it alone. Let's just focus on the first part of this Mishnah, of this Gemara, which is the first part of our Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the Gemara says that what is man's task in this world? What is man's task in this world? To be an Elam, to be a mute. So the Talmud is going even further than the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, I found nothing better for the body than silence. What's the Gemara? What's Rabbi Yitzchak saying? Rabbi Yitzchak is saying that the craft, the craft of a person should be a mute, silence, to be like mute, like he can't speak. Why would that? The Rebbe asks an important question, similar to the question I asked before. We're going to make it a little stronger. Is silence the ultimate craft, the ultimate job of a person in this world? No. As Marsha correctly said before, how did God create the world? With speech. So if God wanted a world of silence, then God would not have created the world with speech. Right? And that's how God created the world. Everything was created through speech. Now, when we say that God created the world through speech, did God verbally speak the way me and you verbally speak? No. What if God spoke? Did God have a mouth? No. Right? God doesn't have teeth, a dentist, braces. God doesn't have a mouth. God doesn't actually speak. The word, when it says that God spoke, is a metaphor. What's the metaphor? Just like when I speak to you, what happens when I speak to you? I express to you what was in my heart or in my mind. You don't know what was in my mind. You're not a mind reader. But now that I'm sharing with you my feelings, or I'm sharing with you my thoughts, now you know what I was thinking. So that's one part of the metaphor. The other part of the metaphor is my words are separate from me. My words, once I say my words, they're no longer mine. They come out of me. And so too the word, the speech of God became separate from God. So the creation of the world is in a way where the world looks like something separate from him, even though Chassidus explains that it's not a perfect example. Because unlike the speech of man that becomes disconnected from its source, and you can no longer take back your words, God's speech never leaves him because there's no place outside of God. So God's speech is like always revealed, but within him. But the metaphor of speech is one of revelation and one of separation, which is why when God wanted to make a world, God had to create a revelation. Let there be light, let there be trees, let there be whatever, in a way that it would feel independent from God. What's the one exception? What's the one thing in the world that was not created through speech? Well, be more specific. Not humans. Well, when you said humans, let's be more specific. You're close. You're on the right track. But be more, how did God create the human? The body of the man was created from the earth and the water that was formed into a lump of clay. Hence the expression, you're sitting like a lump of clay, right? Because our body, before it was infused with the soul, was made from water and earth and fire, which is created by the speech of God. Water is created by God's speech. Earth is created by God's speech. So our bodies are also physical expressions of independence from God. And then what did God do? He blew into his nostrils the breath of life. The soul of man, the soul of Adam and Eve, that wasn't spoken. That was blown. It was blown. Blowing is very different than speaking. Speaking is outside of you. Blowing is from within you. Right? When you speak, you're creating something outside of your being. So the thought before was in my mind, it was my thought, it was my feeling. Now when I speak it to you, what happens? Now it's distinct from me, it's separate, and you can take it however you want to take it. I can think I'm saying one thing, and you can hear something and internalize it differently. And then you can go tell it to her even more differently. And by the time it goes around the block, wrong telephone, everyone's saying, "Oh, the rabbi said." He said, "I don't know, whatever." I never even imagined that. So the point is, the moment speech becomes separate from you, you can't control it. Breath never is separate from you. The moment you stop blowing, there's no more breath. If I'm blowing on you, I know it's not COVID friendly. There's a lot of germs you don't want me to blow on you. I know, but I'm saying if I'm blowing onto paper, whatever, I'm blowing on the moment I stop blowing, There's no more breath. Doesn't continue to exist afterwards. My words continue to exist after I spoke them. I spoke them, that's it. They're now separate, distinct entities that are independent. And you can repeat my words, you can think about my words can hurt you, my words can uplift you, my words can do whatever they do. It's too late. Once I said it, that's it. The damage is done, right? Or the good is done, if I said something nice. That's it. Once the word goes out of my mouth, it's now an independent existence outside of me. Breath never is ever going to be separate from me. If I'm blowing and you put a paper in front of my mouth, there's no more breath after the paper. Once I run out of breath, that's it. There's nothing there. The breath dissipates. It doesn't exist afterwards. Has no independence. So on one hand, when God wanted to make a world, he had to make a world that would continue to exist after he spoke it again on a very simple level, and there's a lot of chassidus on this. He had to make a world that would feel like it exists, because it's not real, but it feels like it exists even after God spoke it into being. So God spoke, which speech is a metaphor of revelation and of separation. But the soul never was given that sense of independence and separation from God. The soul was blown from the depths of God because the soul remains connected at all times. So when we talk about man's job in this world, the world is what kind of world? The world is a world that was created through speech. The world is a world of separation, a world of verbal expression outside of me. And in this world of speech, the soul of man is the only thing that is silent. That is silent. Now, what does silence represent in Chassidus, in Kabbalah? What does silence represent? Wisdom, okay. More than wisdom, it's connected to wisdom. What is silence? It says that Moshe was a man of hard speech. Exactly right. Moshe was a man, I'll say it in a second. Moshe was a man who had a hard time speaking. And who is Moshe? The most humble of all men. In Chassidus, humility is expressed through silence. Right? That's humility. I have nothing to say. I'm humbled. I'm overwhelmed by your presence. I can't speak. I'm speechless. It's a state of humility, a state of nullification, of what we would call bittul, where I have no sense of self, and so there's no words coming out of me. So what part of the person feels independence? The body. The body loves to talk. The body it's a creation of speech. So because it's a creation of speech, it likes to speak, it likes to feel its independence, it likes to feel its identity. The soul is a creation of breath. The soul is silent. There is no speech for the soul. There is no word, let us make the soul of man. There's the body of man. But the soul of man is blown, it's not spoken. So the soul of man is naturally humble. It's naturally aware of its of God's presence, of its dependence upon God to exist. The soul never feels independent of God. And so when the Gemara tells us that what's our craft in this world? To be silent. Our job in the world is to teach our body to be humble before God. This is what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is teaching us in this Mishnah. I found nothing better for the body than silence. Why? Because the body naturally is a creation of speech. The body is naturally feels the need to show itself, to prove itself, to identify itself. It's the soul that's naturally humble. When I was amongst the sages, says Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, when I was amongst the sages, those holy, righteous men that have internalized humility and wisdom, I learned that the best thing for my body is to learn to be humble, which is very, very much connected to what we were saying before. That what's the most powerful form of communication? The most powerful form of communication is not speech. The most powerful form of communication is silence. Not a silence of fear, but a silence of you. And so let me ask you a question. I'll take a takeaway question for us to think about. Think about the time when I'm silent. And ask yourself, is my silence coming out of strength, out of connection, or is it coming out of fear? Which, by the way, what is fear? Self-preservation. The reason why this parent 2 weeks ago was afraid to speak to their child is because, not because they care, they want to do what's best for the child. They want to preserve themselves. They don't want to ruin their own relationship, and then the person will know their child will let them see their grandchild, blah, 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 blah. So, you know what I'm talking about, right? So it's self-preservation. So how do you know if your silence is coming from strength, from connection, from a care for someone else, or if it's coming from fear? It's a good question, huh? How do you know? The answer is in this one word of the Mishnah. Look, is it coming from your gufay, from your body, or is it coming from your soul? The body, the soul is naturally silent. The body is naturally noisy. So when I'm feeling a need to be quiet, is that coming from my soul? Is that a holy silence where I'm being silent because I'm feeling humble, I'm feeling you, and I'm feeling space for you in me? Or is it coming because of my own body, my own fear, or my own selfishness, or my own laziness, or my own, I don't want you to bother me now. I'm tired, I'm stressed, I had enough, don't bother me. That silence of don't bother me, I just want to be left alone, is not from the soul. That's from the body. That's from the body. So that's the question. Are my words, goes to the next thing, the main thing is not the state, but the action. Are my words pushing me? Am I connecting or disconnecting with my silence? And that's the question. If we think about that question, will give us a lot of clarity in our relationships. Silence could be golden, but only, I tell the guy, when is silence golden? When it's an act of communication. When the silence is an act of separation, of shutting down, of disconnecting, that's the body. And the body is not holy. I mean, it is, but not on this level. It's when it's from the soul, it's about connecting, that's holiness. The trick of being in the yeshiva, of studying amongst the sages, is to teach my body to connect to other people the way the sages want, like my soul would. Got it, my friends? That is the story. I'll end up with the story. It's a little connected. So the Baal Shem Tov once sent the students on a journey to go travel to an inn, and they know what they're going to do. They're just traveling to the city. So they come to the city, came to this town, but the Baal Shem Tov told them to go to. They come to the kretcher, to the inn, to go stay there, and they're not sure who they're going to meet, what they're supposed to do. So they come. They're very, very holy, righteous students of the Baal Shem Tov. So they don't just eat any food and then you ran them in. They need to make sure it's kosher, and so before you have days of certifications, there's no certificate on the wall, ORB. It was before certificates existed. So they start asking the innkeeper, who is the shochet? Who slaughtered the meat? Where did it come from? So they finally go get the shochet. They come, they start interrogating him. Where did you learn how to do shchita? Who taught you? What do you know? So ask him questions. Once he knows his stuff, they want to see the knife that he used. They want to check the knife, make sure they themselves are also shochets. They're also slaughterers, so they're checking the knife. Then he served some food. Who washed the lettuce? Or was it washed? Was it this? Where did it come from? Where did this come from? Was this every piece of food? They're interrogating him. Now all of a sudden, there's a guy sitting that looks like a beggar sitting by the stove, minding his own business. Now all of a sudden, he pipes up and he says to them, "Dear Jews, if only you were as careful with what came out of your mouth as what you put into your mouth, then you'd be very good." And then they understood, yes. And then they understood exactly why the Baal Shem Tov had sent them to this town. To hear this, they're so careful what goes in. What comes out, you weren't always so careful. Anyway, my friends, that's the story. Laila Tov. I hope you all enjoyed. Good evening, Mindy. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you. Yes, you said it right. Good evening, Jessica. Good evening, Alice, is joining us from Maryland. Good evening, Faith. And good evening, John Zibero Naui. I don't know how to pronounce that. Glad you're joining us. You have to obey the Holy Torah. That's correct. Good evening, Andrea. Good to see you, Andrea. I haven't seen you in a while. Good evening, Susie. Okay, and all of the Chabad.org. I don't see the comments, and I don't know why. So I'm sure you're all watching, and thank you for joining us. And we're only for blessings and good things. Next week, same time, same place. Laila Tov. Thank you for different stories. Even though I repeated a joke, it's okay. When's the last time I repeated?